Hi everyone, and welcome back to Lady Jane Books. Today I'm doing a full review of The Wife Upstairs by Rachel Hawkins. I rated The Wife Upstairs 3 out of 5 stars. Jane is a scrappy little nobody, but she's working for the rich as their dog walker. This gives her all the opportunity to take what she wants. Jewelry, clothes, household items, it doesn't matter. So when she meets the handsome and wealthy Eddie Rochester, Jane decides what she wants is a life with him. And she's gonna get it, just like his first wife did, before she went missing. This is a brand new domestic thriller. I saw this as an advertisement on Book of the Month, and I was so excited when it finally was published, and I snapped this up the day it came out. This is a very interesting concept for a domestic thriller, as it is described as a modern-day retelling of the classic novel Jane Eyre. This becomes evident in the author's use of names that are very similar to names used in Jane Eyre. The protagonist's name is Jane. Her love interest is Eddie Rochester, much like Edward Rochester. His first wife's name was Bertha, which is exactly the same as in Jane Eyre. So it became very obvious that this was a Jane Eyre retelling. To start in what I liked about this book, the first quarter of the book actually gave me Rebecca vibes. At one point, Jane is in the Rochester house and she can feel the presence of Bertha and about how she really put her stamp on the house. And so for that, it really reminded me of Rebecca vibes. And that's actually a part that I really appreciated the most in this book because it started off as a very atmospheric, very creepy mystery. I do think this was an interesting story as the author really took note to make juxtapositions against Jane's poor life and Eddie's rich life. So that type of commentary about socioeconomic differences was really interesting. I also really appreciated the author's description of this very high-end neighborhood with a bunch of very wealthy people. It really spoke to my escapism, and I don't know if I'll ever actually live that type of life, but I like to think that this is how it was in the story. But I actually really liked taking a peek into it through this story, so that was very clever. Overall, I will say that the mystery is very slow to start peeling away, and at some points I do feel like developments lagged a little bit in the story. While this book was entertaining, there were a few drawbacks. First of all, the story did seem to lag a little bit. There were some slow parts that I kind of skimmed over because nothing was really happening, but I think the author was trying to make this into a slow burn, but it was more of a, it's not burning at all, it's just kind of cold. I did see some instances of an insta-love relationship between Eddie Rochester and Jane. I personally don't care for insta-love, and it felt very juvenile the way that he just kind of fell at her feet and worshipped her. It was very unrealistic to me, and I would have liked to see their relationship grow a little bit more at a slower pace and become more detailed. So I had a little bit of trouble reading the actual relationship part of this novel. I also think that the characters in this novel were just flat. Yes, we do get some of Jane's background over the course of the book that's revealed to us and supposed to be shocking, but she really didn't have a personality outside of thief, and I didn't really appreciate that. I think we could have gotten a little bit more complex with her character. And I believe the author did try that at the end when she tied in some other elements of Jane Eyre, but for me it was just a little bit lacking. Similarly, Eddie Rochester was kind of a cardboard cutout of any male character that could be written. There wasn't anything necessarily special about him or didn't really have any dimension to his personality. The author did try to insinuate that there was an other side of him and he was more complex through some sinister innuendos, but for me, it wasn't enough. I wanted to actually get a deeper look into his character. Instead, he just seemed like a cardboard cutout that was supposed to be Edward Rochester. And it goes without saying that the rest of the cast of characters unfortunately had the same fate. They were flat, not very distinctive, and just kind of meshed into the background for me. I have kind of mixed emotions about whether or not I liked it being a Jane Eyre retelling or not. I think it's a good concept to have a Jane Eyre retelling. However, I do think for this particular novel, it was actually unnecessary. In my opinion, the book was unique enough with the character plot and the thriller aspects to have stood on its own, rather than try to piggyback off of another concept. I actually found the references to Jane Eyre through the names and places and some of the plot points to be actually quite distracting. And quite frankly, I think that if somebody knows the story of Jane Eyre, they're going to be quite bored from this book. Because if you know the story of Jane Eyre, you basically know like the big twist, and basically they reveal a big twist about 20% into the book anyway. So for me, I felt like it dragged a little because I was like, this is predictable. If you know the story of Jane Eyre, you know what's going to happen in this book. It's a little predictable. And I think that worked against this book. I went into this thinking, okay, it's a Jane Eyre retelling. That means that she's going to be poor, he's going to be rich, they're going to fall in love, and he has this big bad secret, right? But so for that, I kind of already knew the layout of the story, and I wasn't surprised or apprehensive about anything. And it was just very predictable when it was compared to Jane Eyre. However, I do think if they had taken out those references of Jane Eyre, changed the names, changed the place, changed some of the dynamics, it would have been an incredibly strong, interesting thriller. I think if they changed around one or two aspects, it would have been just as strong as an original work. And that was really disappointing for me because you get so hyped to hear it's a Jane Eyre retelling, but then you're bored because you know it's a Jane Eyre retelling. So you're excited because, oh, this looks like fun and new, but then it actually isn't that new or fun. So I think if they had marketed it differently, if they had taken out all the Jane Eyre references, this would have been a much, much stronger book. In conclusion, I do think this was a very good concept and was entertaining, but could be a little bit stronger. I also have to say that Jane was not likable whatsoever. And I'm not adverse to an unlikable character as long as they're well done. I do think that it was just unlikable, and therefore I lost interest in whatever happened to her. And so therefore I kind of got a little bit bored with the story. Because I think in the original work you feel for Jane, especially with the big reveal and how Edward had treated her and kind of tricked her. And in this one, you didn't really care because part of me was like, well, you deserve it. You're stealing from all these people. You know, you're basically trying to trap this man. Maybe you deserve it a little bit. Sorry, Jane, but dang. That was a little bit disappointing for me because I wanted to like Jane as I liked her in the original work, but this retelling just kind of made me not a big fan of hers. I was so excited when this book came out because look at the cover. It's so gorgeous. I love the blue color. I love the print. I love how it's supposed to be looking really elegant but so shabby. Oh my goodness, it's really cool. Like really, really cool. As we all know, Lady Jane thinks that the most beautiful books can be some of the most disappointing. And I'm afraid that this may have been the case with The Wife Upstairs. In conclusion, The Wife Upstairs could have been stronger. However, it was an entertaining book and a very good concept. Therefore, I rated this novel 3 out of 5 stars. And that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. I mean, it's called The Wife Upstairs, and you know it's a Jane Eyre retelling. That basically gave everything away, like, in one line. I don't know. I don't understand that. It could have been good. I feel like a retelling of Rebecca would have been better and would have been more eerie and cool, but this one, it didn't need to be a Jane Eyre retelling. No. It didn't need to. I really want authors to make, like, more original work rather than retellings or things like that. I think this would have been good. I was honestly really disappointed, guys. I thought this was going to be brilliant. This is a brand new domestic thriller. Excuse me. This becomes evident in the author's use of Jane. This becomes evidence in evidence. This becomes evidence, Jane. This is weird to say Jane and then Jane because I'm Jane. But in the book's Jane, but it's Jane Eyre, and she's like kind of gross, and I hope I'm not. I don't know. It's weird. This was a weird book for me to read. It's like that Spider-Man meme. Jane. For example, the protagonist's name is Jane. Her love interest name is Edward Rochester, or Eddie Rochester. His wife's name was B, as in Beatrice, and his wife's name was B, as in Bertha. So, and I believe the name of his house. I also really appreciated the author's use. Additionally, it becomes similarly Edward. I want to call him Edward because that's what he was in Jane Eyre, and I like Jane Eyre better than this book, basically. The book was you. In conclusion, the woman upstairs. Good. Okay, bad, good, Jane. Therefore, I rated this novel 3 out of 5 stars. And that's all I have for today. Excuse me. Excuse me. Ooh, I felt that. I think my neighbors felt that too. Ooh. Oh, I think the whole neighborhood felt that one. Excuse me.